and welcome to the Third Eye View. I'm your host, Heather Lawrence. Today we're going to meet psychics ranging from pop culture experts to crime solvers. Have you ever wondered how it all works being a psychic or a medium? Well, today you're going to find out, and now we're going to meet our panel, starting with Reverend Wizard Jason, Therapist Sean, pop culture psychic Tracy Brown, and Myra Tapia, energy healer, Mystic Dylan, historian expert, and Psychic Debbie, intuitive medium crime solver. This is the Third Eye View. All right, we're here with Psychic Debbie, who is hey. Hey, you already knew that.
Yeah.
You knew what I was gonna say. Who's an intuitive reader, but also has another gift, which is crime solving. So we really want to hear about that.
I really love doing
solving.
that kind of work. Thank you. I also go by Waltera too. Sometimes people know me as Debbie Waltera or Debbie, Psychic Debbie, but working on cold cases, I love finding missing people and cold cases.
Yeah, and I heard that you're working on a case in Montana, and it's a 45-year-old case about a missing 11-year-old.
No, it was a little 5-year-old.
A little 5-year-old
who got murdered.
It was murdered. So tell us about that.
I heard through the grapevine, somehow connected with the police officers, and they said they were kind of testing my abilities, I think. And they said, here's a 45-year-old case, would you help us with this? Mm-hmm. And his family was connected to it. So I worked on that case and found a lot of information. Did I solve it? No, I will say for sure I didn't solve it, but I brought in a lot of information that they were looking at in different ways now.
So do they expect you to solve it, or they just want information?
I think they want information, like roads, different roads that they took. I found evidence, new evidence came up, things like that from 45 years ago.
So if I take it they're coming with you on these excursions?
Yes.
Now, are they like, are you hot, you're cold, you're warm? Because they don't know the information.
Right, that's the way I work is they ask me a question, because I can hear a lie a mile away, so I'm a truth teller. And so they would ask me a question, and then I'd say, oh no, that's false, or that's true. So it's like, if did Jim do this? And I'll say, no, it doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound true. I will then bring up a name, and then that will come through.
So how does the information come to you?
I channel it. I don't remember my readings at all. The spirits, sometimes I call them the peanut gallery, so I don't know what to call them, but I channel this information and I just write it down. I do a lot of writing because I don't remember my readings, and then I overlook my information, and then we talk between me and the detectives, and we figure things out. I've found missing people. I've helped solve cold cases.
Wow.
I've helped help with cases that are ongoing.
So you can't discuss the case, obviously.
Exactly, I can't do that.
And so if they solve a case, do they let you know that they've solved it?
They let me know, but I can't get any accolades for it, which is fine, because I love doing this work. If it's to help a family find a missing person or solving a case, I'm ecstatic. I love it.
This is great, because we're definitely going to use you on the show, and we'll probably have some interesting cases and things coming up. So
well,
this is going to
I'd
be a
love
lot
to
of
do
fun.
that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much for coming. All right, we're here with Sean, and Sean has an interesting title. We'll let him explain. What does fairy mean?
Well, I'm a therapist, because I'm like a fairy therapist. I use my fairy cards. But dealing with fairies, let's just get that right out of the way. Fairies, F-A-E-R-Y, is the proper way to talk about fairies. And it comes from Irish folklore, British folklore. Like today, if you were to go to Ireland, you would still find people who put saucers of milk on the porch. And that's not for stray cats, y'all. That is for the fairies, so that they don't piss off the fairies, or don't step in a fairy circle. It's a very real thing.
So do fairies look like Tinkerbell?
They do, or they could look as ugly as a pixie, like the little goblin-y kind. And from what I was told from my dealings, pixies are the ones that are kind of like the under-evolved ones, the ones that are like the pranksters, the trickers, and then like the queens and those beautiful pictures that we've seen. They are the representation. And in fact, I found out from my queen that I talked to, all elementals that we believe in, from mermaids to fairies to all of the stuff that we no longer see, they all exist, but they just exist on this plane, but in an invisible format because of, since the Industrial Revolution, since humans in this world have chosen to show that we want machinery over nature, we no longer really get to see them anymore. Children get to see them all the time. Why do babies giggle at nothing and get tickled by stuff? That's a fairy.
So
That's they're always
this,
around.
they're not in this room right now?
Well, I mean, I chose not to turn on my vision because
Okay.
then you can see ghosts and stuff, and I don't want to see no ghosts.
Oh,
That's just
I don't
scary.
want to see no
But the thing is, artists, that's why artistry has shown us what they look like forever. And how is it that we knew to draw wings on someone and look that way and then give them a name?
So Disney didn't invent
No,
fairies, okay.
no, Disney just stole that and copyrighted it.
Oh.
Woo, shade. But I love Disney, that's okay.
Okay, so another part of Sean is that he is a witch.
A real life
A
room
real
writing
life.
witch, which is great because Dylan was explaining the occult and stuff like that. But the thing is that he's not really ascribed to anything. I'm an actual Wiccan, which is the proper term. It's a religion. We believe in two deities, the god and the goddess, karma, the elements, on all that stuff, and that's how you get to talk to fairies and ghosts and stuff because it provides the roads to all the elementals and stuff like that.
So what can you do as a witch? Like what are the
Oh,
things
as a
you-
witch, I mean, you can practically do anything as long as you don't hurt anybody in the process.
Okay, so
And we can't create something out of nothing. So people commonly come to witches for love spells. I can't conjure love out of something from nothing. Like, I can't point at someone that's like a heterosexual and be like, that's gonna be my boyfriend if he's not even remotely gay. Like, you know what I mean?
okay, so how can a spell work then?
Spells are basically pushing energy. So the only thing we can do is kind of like push energy and manifest things that are destined to come. That's why money spells always work so good, because money's fluid. So it's like, if I want money, it's an ocean. So I'm just asking for the tide to come back in. You know what I mean? It doesn't belong to anyone. But can I make a man fall in love with me? No. But if I sense that there's an interest, could I maybe put on an attraction potion or do an attraction spell? Yes.
So if it's not meant to be that the
spell
wish,
fails.
Oh, the spell fails.
Uh-huh.
Well, that is good to know. So that should reassure people.
Yeah, that we're not out to hex and vex you. I mean, that's a whole different mythology, and there's a lot of. And not to say that hexes and the curses don't work, but they're not witches if they do that.
So where does the witch thing with the broom and the hat come
Well, the
from?
hat actually represents the idea of the cone of power. So when you're casting a spell, you're sending your thoughts up through the cone of power to send them into the world, so it channels it even better. So that's always been a thing. Brooms were always used to sweep out evil and stuff like that, and I think in the early years when women were using it, I think that it was depicted that they would fly around, like maybe run around backwards as a phallic symbol to kind of like stick it to the man. But for the most part, it's just used to sweep away negative energy.
So there's no flying.
No, not unless you're on peyote, and I think you've died.
But you got a flying, you got the fairies, you got the witch thing
got all that
going, so
stuff,
you
yeah.
gotta learn how to fly at some point.
You gotta learn how to fly at some point, but I'll keep you. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That's
Yeah.
great. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. We'll be right back. All right, we have got a really interesting guy here. It's Dylan, and Dylan is an anthropologist, and he also studies the occult. And you also offer.
And I think, and then my love for the occult, kind of led me to, in terms of the psychic world, doing tarot and other forms of divination.
But how does for people who really don't know, how does that come together? Because most of we think of like it is like studying rocks or like.
Yeah, no, I think it's just the whole aspect of, if you think about the psychic world and just on a spiritual level, people have been, I think the first and foremost, the first real job was that of like the shaman or the magician. You had that person that everyone needed to go to for answers, so you had someone, the town wanted to know, why is there a drought? Why is this happening? Why has my spouse left me? And everyone looked to the divine or looked to that spiritual world. So because of that, there were tools that people used to find those answers.
Right, because there were no cards, so people use like rocks and stuff.
And that's called claromancy. So the art of casting lots, whether it be bones or gems or stones or anything like that, or runes, all that kind of falls into the aspect of a divination type known as claromancy. So technically, card throwing kind of falls into that category.
What's cardam? Isn't there something
So
called
there's cartomancy, which is the modern
Cartomancy.
term because now we have cards. But before we went to cards, it would be claromancy. So it kind of goes hand in hand.
This is fascinating.
Yeah.
You're like the history channel for psychics.
Yeah, and actually the first, so tarot, which is like very famous and everyone knows tarot and a lot of people go to like the tarot cards. in terms of divination or being used for fortune telling or answering questions, that didn't really come up until the 1800s. And it didn't come to America until the Civil War. So in Europe, yes, we had tarot cards, like one of the famous ones is known as the Visconti Tarot from the 14th century, but that was actually just a playing card deck. And it was used by very famous families. Now, it's also said that gypsies used tarot cards as well for divination, but it was mostly just for yes-no questions.
Oh.
So it wasn't full form in terms of looking at a concrete answer or looking at a general reading. That didn't really come about till the 1800s.
This is fascinating. It's like history.
Yeah.
We're getting a history lesson
So
in it.
usually what would happen is that you would have stones or bones, and you would ask a question, you would throw those, and based on where those were cast or where those fell, that's kind of where you came about and answered questions. So you would have a bone here, you would maybe have a gem, and the gem represented something else. So if you had an amethyst, usually amethyst represents healing or the psychic world. So you would say, okay, there's something spiritual happening over here that you need to look at, but this foot bone means that you are grounded and you have to stay, focused on your goal.
So what does people say? Throwing bones. We just throw,
Yeah,
throw
so
a bone.
you just
I'll throw a bone
kind
at
of
you.
just that's kind of where it came from.
Ooh.
I'll throw you a bone, or I'll give you an answer, or I'll help you out. So it came in that aspect. And then the ancient Greeks.
There's a duck somewhere.
Yeah,
He's calling. He wants his card trick.
He wants the bones.
He's like, "Give me back my bones."
Yeah, so the ancient Greeks, they also did a form called scrying. So they would look at smoke. So they would burn herbs, and the smoke from the herbs would light, and you would kind of peer into that, gaze into that, and kind of get questions. So actually, tarot falls into the aspect of scrying too, because there are intuitive tarot card readers who kind of look at the images, and the images that are conveyed through them, that kind of gives them the answers.
Fascinating. So let's talk about the occult. 'Cause
Okay.
People love the occult.
Yeah, so the word occult actually means unknown. So it's sad because I think there's such a huge misconception because you have all these cults or this person joined a cult. And cult is also new. So anything that doesn't fall under religious dogma, so Christianity, Judaism, all those things kind of form into the aspect or fall into the category of cult or pagan.
Oh, so that's where it comes from.
Yeah. So it's kind of that. So actually cults are fairly new. The occult,
Yeah.
if you put an O in front of it, just means the unknown. It's something we don't necessarily do. So like the practice of witchcraft, if you're in a group, you're part of the occult because you don't necessarily keep into that. There are different sects that meet together that don't even offer anything to do with spirituality. That would be known as the occult.
So it's not really that. It sounds
No,
scary, but it's
no,
not really
it's
scary.
true.
It's because we don't know.
It's because you don't know. So exactly, and that's why it kind of gets a bad rap.
Yeah. It's
The same
word.
with you have voodoo. Everyone gets scared of voodoo. Voodoo is just a synchronistic religion. So all it is different faiths kind of put together in one in New Orleans. So you have Catholics, you have West African traditions that are put in there. You have all these different religions that are kind of piled in one, and they're taking bits and pieces, and they call it voodoo. It's not necessarily a organized religion or anything of that. Hoodoo is a magic, voodoo is a religion, and then it's also just called folk magic.
So people just need to relax. They get
True.
so upset about these words. They're just
Yeah.
words, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, we have so much to learn from you. I'm so glad you're on the show because we could spend a lifetime
Well,
talking
thank
to
you for having me.
All right, Dylan. Yes.
Awesome,
okay.
Heather.
Okay, cool. We'll be right
Very
back.
happy.
Thanks.